We are in the chapter Sand Through the Hourglass, chapter 6 on page 137. And I think this might be my favorite chapter. I don't know about you guys. I don't know what your favorite chapters are, but this one seems to lend itself very readily to our culture and how set we are on time. So, speaking of time, I started late this morning, clock time. Here is our icebreaker question. If you were given an extra 2 hours every single day, but you weren't allowed to use them for work or chores, what would you do with them? Okay, think about it and then tell your neighbors. I think this shows what our values are. When we strip away all of the stress of work and chores, now we know what we really want to do. So there's a running gag in The Chosen about the word soon. That just makes me crack up because that's exactly what we're talking about in this chapter are the precise and imprecise words for time. And the authors open up the chapter, by talking about, you think every culture would agree on time. There's only 24 hours in a day. And yet, different cultures have very different views of what time is and how to use it. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm actually trained as an industrial engineer, and that's literally my whole career is time and making things more efficient in the factory. And so they talk about that on page 138. Efficiency, the ability to do the most work in the least time, is an important Western value. And thus we have career choices that make sure things are efficient. So, for example, when I was an intern, before I was even hired, they put me in a part of the Hawker Beechcraft factory. At the time, it was Raytheon. And I watched them create engine cowlings. Those are the openings that go under the engine that intake air. And so I had to go first shift, second shift, third shift across like 3 weeks and literally sit there with my stopwatch and time every person doing their particular job. I also had to write down what they were doing with their left hand and what they were doing with their right hand at what time. So time studies like very, very precisely document what work is happening when. That whole career path is exactly this, what they're talking about on page 138. It's all about efficiency. And that is such a virtue in our culture. Everything is efficient. I went through the line at Chick-fil-A this morning. Let me tell you, industrial engineers made that happen. Disney is the largest employer of industrial engineers. Think about their theme parks and all waiting in all of the lines. Yeah, so efficiency is really important to us. But in other cultures, procrastination is the virtue, which sounds really strange to us. I have some friends from Mexico, and they're always saying, mañana, tomorrow. We'll put it off till tomorrow. No big deal. You might not even need to do it anyway, right? Now, on page 138, when they introduce talking about and measuring time, they say, in the earlier chapter on language, we noted what a culture values is often evidenced by specialized vocabulary in the language that makes it easier to describe and discuss it. It should come as no surprise then that Western and non-Western cultures have very different ways of talking about time. So yeah, in English, we only have one word for time. Time, that's it. But in Greek, there's really actually 3 words for time. We're going to focus on the 2 main ones we see in the Bible. So on the left is chronos. So say that with me, chronos. And notice there's an emphasis, chronos. And then on the right is kairos. Well, I said it with the wrong emphasis, kairos. Kairos. Okay, so chronos is clock time. That's what we're most familiar with. And so it can be either long or short time, but it's measured time. It's what we call quantitative. We can measure it, right? It's discrete, like we can break it down into smaller chunks, but it's measurable. On the right, Kairos is not necessarily clock time, it's more season. And it's really more like an opportunity. You've heard at the appointed time, right? So, or the right time. So it's a little more nuanced and not as clear and direct or measured as Chronos. So there's two different words here in Greek for that. And I like what this graphic says. We want things to happen our way, but God operates beyond time, unfolding his bigger plan. And what we find in the chapter, the authors talk about this in the chapter, is that in the Bible, we most often see Kairos, not Chronos, right? So we'll go through some examples of that. And so the problem the authors point out is because our Western culture is so focused on Chronos, clock time, that we often misread Bible passages because we assume that the English word time that we're reading is Chronos. But more often than not, it's Kairos. So how did the Greeks end up with two words for time? Well, as the Greeks do, they have gods for everything. So they have, so Chronos sounds very similar to Chronos, the god Chronos, and oftentimes they're kind of mixed up, but you can see the mosaic depicting him. He's got the zodiac wheel, so the wheel of time, if you will. He is a symbol of cyclical time. He's usually portrayed as an old, callous man with a thick gray beard, personifying the destructive and stifling aspects of time. And the scythe and the hourglass symbolize the relentless passing of time and refer to death. Originally, this sculpture here was probably on top of a clock, like very on the nose. So this is quantitative time, so clock time. That's Chronos. And there was also the god of Kairos, or Kairos, the Greek god of the opportune moment. And notice his hairstyle. He's bald on the back, but on the front, he's got this lovely lock of hair that's conveniently able to be grabbed. And it says that he had a single catchable lock of hair on his forehead. And the idea was that if you wanted to grab the opportunity, you grab his hair. You catch your opportunity. So he represents the perfect decisive moment, or what we would call a God moment, that intersects with the ordinary flow of time. It's the pregnant pause that allows for change. He's often portrayed with a razor in his hand, balancing a set of scales, right? And so that symbolizes that his timing is precise and sharper than any sharp edge. Now, it's not Chronos time. What he means is this opportunity is here for a limited time only. So if you want to grab that opportunity, seize that opportunity, you've got to do it quick. Because if he passes you by, you can't grab anything on the back of his head because he's bald. Right? You've got to seize the opportunity right then. He's the Greek god of the opportune moment, representing a qualitative, so think quality time, fleeting time of opportunity and divine timing, as opposed to linear timing. So very different. That's how the Greeks thought about time, represented by two different Greek gods. So speaking of time and how the Greeks viewed time, the Greeks have been obsessed with time, and we can see that through this device. I see Kathy smiling. We saw this in a museum at Athens. This is at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, and I did not realize we were going to go there that day. It was like a last-minute trip. He's like, okay, we have time. Let's go. So Everett got us to this museum, and it did not occur to me, this is the museum where this is at, and I have studied this in school. And we turned the corner and there it is. And I thought I was going to cry. I know it seems weird to cry over a museum object, but I have watched so many documentaries about this. This is the Antikythera Mechanism. And this was found off the coast of Greece, off of an island called Antikythera. And it was discovered in 1901 as part of a Roman shipwreck. So they were finding other objects like amphorae, vessels that carried liquid. And lo and behold, they found this gear-looking thing. And so they brought it up. You can see it kind of on the left. It's the very green-looking object on the left. And they didn't know what it was at first, but as they started peeling back the layers off of it, they realized this has precision-formed gears. And it's technology that they thought didn't happen until like 1,000 years later. So it's a 2,100-year-old Greek hand-cranked analog computer. This is their first computer in the world. And they used it to measure time. They used it to map the rotation or the orbit of the sun and the moon and the planets. They used it to predict eclipses, and they used it to plan ahead for the Olympic Games. So inside, it's got an intricate set, multiple, like 40 different gears all attached. And so I'm showing you just the front of it, but on the back side of it, it would have had another dial to show you additional celestial events. It works through sophisticated interlocking bronze gear system, and it is complex. You can see all the parts and pieces. They haven't fully put it back together because it's so fragile, but they've created images that show how it would have gone together. But it also just illustrates how intensely the Greeks wanted to know time. And Indiana Jones actually covered this in the last Indiana Jones movie. Anybody see that? Yeah. Okay. Archimedes did not build this. I mean, that would be amazing. Like, but it might have come from the school of Archimedes. We don't know. But fun to think about nonetheless. So Greeks loved time, and it shows up in our biblical text. So if we go through the New Testament especially, we will see lots of different instances of the word time. And again, what the authors are pointing out to us is that we often assume that it's, which one? Do you remember? Chronos. Yes, Chronos. And so what I want you to do, I have an activity for you. You can work in pairs, work in a trio, whatever convenient for where you're sitting. And I want you to go through, I have a worksheet with examples, and these are the examples from the chapter, and I want you to predict when you read each one, predict what you think it is, and then we're going to look it up in Blue Letter Bible and find out which one it actually is. I did this and I was wrong a lot. So this is going to be really helpful. With each question, I have a discussion prompt. So for example, the first one is Matthew 2:7. That's about Herod and the Magi. And so I have you find the Greek word, and the discussion prompt is, why does Herod need this specific type of time? So don't spend too long on the discussion, just a real quick, here's what I think. And so if you'll go through the examples, I've got 7 different words or verses for you to look up. Which Greek word is representing time? And then at the end, I have a bonus, a hidden gem discovery with a bigger reflection question. So we'll spend some time on that one, but we'll take probably 12 to 15 minutes. I am going to time it. So move, don't take forever. Let's do Matthew 2:7. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. What's the Greek word? Yes, very good, very good. Why did Herod need a specific time? It was a celestial event, yes. 1 Peter 4:3, for you have spent enough time in the past doing what pagans choose to do, living in debauchery, lust, drunkenness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. You really got to know the context on this one. But what is that Greek word for time? Yes, Chronos. Very good. And what's the urgency to live for the will of God here?
Waste any more time.
Don't waste any more time. Yes. Okay, Acts 7:17. Let me find it. As time drew near for God to fulfill his promise to Abraham, the number of our people in Egypt had greatly increased. What's that Greek word? Yes, Chronos. Very good. Very good. So was this a deadline on a calendar or a ripening of God's plan?
We disagreed with Blue.
You disagreed with James Strong? I see where you're thinking it's probably Kairos, but it says, as the time drew near for God to fulfill his promise to Abraham, that happened on a calendar date when he rescued them from Egypt. So, Chronos. Okay. Let's do Matthew 13:30. Matthew 13. Verse 30, let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn. What's that Greek word? Yeah. Kairos.
That one was easier for farm kids, so.
It is easier for farm kids, I know. I agree.
I understand that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Why can't the harvest be rushed by a stopwatch?
It's not going to be ready.
Yeah, so many factors. You've got the weather, right? You've got rain, the moisture. I know. Yes, lots of factors there. Oh, yes, it's ready when it's ready. Very good. All right, Galatians 4:4. This one got me. Galatians 4:4. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law. The set time, what Greek word is that? Chronos. Yes. So what had to happen in order for this event? Think of the gears of the Antikythera Mechanism. We had to have the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Jesus came during the Roman Empire, which they had established roads that allowed the gospel to spread. So lots of factors here. Ephesians 5. So this one is 2 verses, but the word is actually in 16. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. So what is that Greek word? Yes, Kairos. Very good. How does this Greek word change your goal for a busy Tuesday?
Make the best use of your time.
Yes, make the best use of your time. Watch for opportunities, right? Maybe to help someone or spread the gospel. Last one, Hebrews 4:7. Hebrews 4:7. God again set a certain day, calling it today. This he did when a long time later he spoke through David, as in the passage already quoted, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. This was kind of a trick question because there's the word time, but there's also the word today. What is the Greek word for time here? Yes, chronos. Yeah, no, we're learning. That's okay. So why is today a specific kind of opportunity rather than just a date? Right? You're only promised today. What'd you say, Barbara?
Well, because today's the day. It's
Yeah.
already, that was said. It's today.
Do it now. Yes.
Our days are numbered.
Our days are numbered. Yes. Very good. Very good.
It's like, just do it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, just do it. Okay, bonus question. 1 Timothy 6:14-15. 1 Timothy 6, 14-15. I charge you to keep this command without spot or blame until the appearing of our Lord Jesus Christ, which God will bring about in his own time. So what's that Greek word? Kairos, yes. Okay, so the reflection question, if God manifested his word at a perfect opportune moment, Kairos, rather than just a random date on the calendar, Chronos, how does that change the way that you wait for the second coming? Are we waiting for a clock to run out or for a season to be fulfilled? It's a season, yeah, Kairos, a season. We're waiting for it to be fulfilled. A lot of people get this part wrong, like the late Baptist rapture preacher Harold Camping, who multiple times predicted when the end would come, and the date passed with nothing happening. Lots of people have tried to predict the second coming of Jesus, but I think they're missing the Greek word here. They're thinking, which word? Chronos, yeah, they're trying to count a date. But as we see from 1 Timothy, it's not Chronos, it's Kairos. It's an opportunity. So it always makes me chuckle when someone tries to predict when Jesus is coming back on the calendar.
You therefore know that it is not that day.
I know, right? So true, so true. Okay, you guys did fantastic. I am so proud of you for stretching your brains and learning Blue Letter Bible. Look at all this Greek you're learning. It makes me so proud. To finish up, we've talked about Chronos. Let's talk about other examples in the Bible. Kairos. So I'm on page 143, 144. The authors, Randy actually shared a story of when he was in Indonesia, and they needed to get some cabinetry for their house, but there were no carpenters on the island. So they invited one in who moved into the carport. I know. Maybe that helps us understand Kairos a little better. You have to wait for the opportunity. And maybe this also helps us understand Jesus's earthly father, Joseph. What was he doing during those few years in Bethlehem before they had to escape to Egypt? Right?
Seizing the opportunity to work.
Seizing the opportunity, yeah. Maybe he got some extra work. I love this photograph. This is from Nazareth Village, which is a living history museum in Nazareth, Israel. I feel like some of you guys had been there. Yes, Kathy's been there. Yes, Brenda's been there. Oh, delightful. So did you get to meet the carpenter while you were there? Or you just walked through his shop?
Well, we went to church there. We had church service there that morning.
So cool.
Stayed for a little gathering after church.
Nice.
Is that what I remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yep.
On the bucket list, maybe.
Well, it's similar to in Bethlehem, of course, the Jews can't go into Bethlehem. Well, then couldn't go into Bethlehem. And
Oh, when you went.
so we went to the workshops in Bethlehem.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there's always carpentry to be done. So maybe that's what Joseph was doing during those few years. I think that's a good mental image here. And that's definitely what Greek word? The opportunity. Kairos. Yes. Good job. Good job. Okay. And let's hop on over to 146 where he talks about the banquets, the ancient feasts that made me think of the Prodigal Son. And so I have a painting here of the Prodigal Son coming home, and look, they're bringing in the fatted calf for the feast. It's on the left of the painting here. Don't you love how they use the word soon to announce their banquet? Soon, such an imprecise word. The exact date was always a bit negotiable for several reasons. First, they didn't have a weather forecast, right? And then second, some supplies had to come from out of town. And finally, one did not kill the fatted calf until the day of the feast, right? No refrigeration. And so I think this also illustrates Kairos, the opportunity. You have the feast when everything is pulled together. You don't know the date yet because you don't have all your supplies, or you don't know the weather that day. So you decide the day of, and that's your banquet. Things would work a little differently here if we operated that way. When we send out invitations, it's got a very specific clock time, right? Very Chronos. Feasts in the Bible were very Kairos. So let's see some examples of Chronos in the Bible. And on page 149, they have some really good examples here. Sometimes, there's a verse. Oh, here on page 148 toward the top, it says, because Westerners are so interested in time, we tend to find a lot of significance in the order of events in Scripture. You know, when something occurs matters to us. So we have a tendency as Western readers to import our concern for chronology into Scripture. We want things to happen in the right order because to us, sequence gives meaning and value, right? The biblical authors did not see it that way. They operated in a kairos kind of environment. And so the arrangement of their stories in the different gospels, sometimes people say, oh, well, that contradicts. But here we're seeing, Luke, for example, using references to the temple as an organizing theme in his gospel, or Matthew, where he has every major event in the life of Jesus occur on a mountain. So they're organizing it thematically, not chronologically, which is a little different for our brains to handle. 149, it talks about the fig tree. So I've got a picture here from The Chosen, I think it's season 5. So in Mark, let's see, Mark's arrangement, bottom of 149, Mark's arrangement of the stories indicates that the fig tree story is to tell us how to understand Jesus's actions in the temple. Those two stories are put together, right? So Jesus goes to the temple, he flips the tables, right? He says, my Father's house should be a house of prayer for all people. You've made it a den of robbers, right? And by pairing it with the story of the fig tree, what he's actually showing is that the temple was full of activity, but was bearing no fruit. Ouch. That really changes how we understand this story now. Yeah. We know the den of robbers refers to Jeremiah, but pairing it with that fig tree, that really gets you. The Sadducees had made it a money-making scheme with the exchange of all the animals for sacrifice. And you can see why Jesus rightfully was very angry. They were not bringing honor to God. They were shaming God by their lack of righteous activity in the temple. So that's the fig tree. Oh, how about this amazing story? If you've seen The Chosen, they named her Veronica. This is the woman that had bled for 10 years. And if we have time, I can show you the actual video. It makes me cry every time. It's so precious. But I've always, like the authors, I've always thought, poor Jairus's daughter, like maybe she would have lived if this woman hadn't have interrupted. Right? Has anyone else thought that?
Yeah.
Why did we stop in the middle of trying to heal Jairus's daughter to do this? It's actually written this way on purpose to tell us something. Mark connects these stories in a number of ways. Both the girl and woman are called daughter, right? The girl is 12 years old. The woman has been bleeding for 12 years. Jairus falls to the ground. The woman falls to the ground. Clearly, Mark wants us to read these stories together. Most important for our purposes here on page 150, Mark's sequencing of the events connects them. He wants us to interpret them together, compare and contrast the response to Jesus. We may be inclined to think the story of the bleeding woman is told in the middle of the Jairus story, merely because that's when it happened. In this case, our love for chronology can lead us to miss the kairos of Mark's point. That was an opportune time for her to reach out and touch the tassels on his garment, right? Wow. But before we're done, I want to talk about the last reflection question on page 151. It's number 5. So pictured up here, I have the widow's mites. Look how tiny they are. Elaine has some, and I didn't believe how small they were. You can see the lines on his hand, or whoever is holding this. I know, so small. Now, it says when a biblical story doesn't give us chronology, chronos, connectors, we often just drop any thoughts of time, sequence. We are all familiar with the story of the widow's mite in Luke 21, right? Jesus looked up and saw the woman putting her coins in, and he said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on." If we read this story as emphasizing the virtue of giving sacrificially, we might be ignoring the Kairos of Luke's storytelling. Okay, so when Luke tells a story, matters a great deal. And he had just told us Jesus' warning to beware of religious leaders who, among other things, devour widows' houses. Let's look it up. Luke 20:47. Luke 20, all the way at the end. 47. Oh, this is the beware section, warning against the teachers of the law. So Jesus says this to his disciples. And in 47, he says, they devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely. And then the next story is the widow's offering, the widow's mite. So what was happening to widows back then? They were being taken advantage of by religious leaders who should have been acting more appropriately, but they would essentially steal their housing because they didn't have anyone to stand up for them. So let's see, back on 152. So what is Luke saying to us through the timing, the sequence of the stories? Is the widow a role model of sacrificial giving, or is Jesus holding her up as an example of how religious folk can exploit the piety of the poor? Should those of us who preach this story actually be afraid of it? Dum, dum, dum. I mean, really. And we see this happen even in our society. But what about televangelists who preach prosperity gospel? Send us money. We'll pray for you. We'll pay for this private jet for us to preach the gospel all around the world. Or look at my Maserati in the parking lot, right? You've seen this. We still see this on TV. So putting these stories together, Luke is telling us something about religious leaders. It's a warning. So that helps us read this story a little differently, right? This is Kairos. Okay. I hope that this helped you see the difference between the two Greek words for time. You guys worked really hard with your Blue Letter Bibles today. I have one final question for you. Think about your typical busy week. Where do you usually feel the most interrupted or delayed? If you stop seeing that delay as wasted chronos, wasted clock time, and started seeing it as a God-appointed kairos, an opportunity, how would that change your actions? So take a photo, write this down. I'll let you sit with this on your own this week. We don't have to discuss this one. You guys worked really hard today. So next week, we're going to start a new section. And it's the third and final section called Deep Below the Surface. And we'll tackle chapter 7, first things first, rules and relationships. All right, so I'll see you then for that.